Check 1, 2. There we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome into our latest live broadcast. Today it is the 19th of July, 2026. My name is Carey Holzman, and thank you guys so much for joining us. Sorry about the little audio issue there. I had myself on mute. You're welcome. Anyway, thank you. A shout out to our friend Buster out there in Edinburgh, Scotland, who sends us an Amazon gift card just prior to the show starting in lieu of a super chat to show his support, and he's also a member. Thank you to all of our members as well. We're a member-funded channel, and that's how we pay the bills. So if you want to see more content like this that's unbiased and fully transparent, please support us, and the projects we show here can be bigger according to the size of our budget. And of course, if you're watching live, join us in our chat room, member or not. You're always welcome to be a part of our supportive and friendly community. As long as you're a friendly and supportive individual, there's always room for more. I want to remind you of our friends over at VIP-URCDKEYs. They're where I buy my Windows and Office license keys. So I know many of you have seen the same video clip I'm going to show, but we also get a lot of new viewers all the time, and so this may be our first time, their first time seeing us. It doesn't matter that I've had this channel since 2009. New people are discovering us every day, and so for their benefit, please bear with me as I go over this again. I run my own computer repair business, and the YouTube thing was always a side gig, and I'm a professional computer technician. I'm not an enthusiast. And when I sell computers to clients, they have to be competitively priced. So I can't pay Microsoft retail for a Windows or Office license. My customers will shop elsewhere because my prices will be too high. I'd also be working a lot harder instead of working smarter. So with a little research, I found a lot of scam sellers online until I found an actual real seller that has support for up to 6 months after the sale, fully legit, been around over 10 years. And I asked them if they would work with me to give my audience a discount. Essentially, the short of it is, I pay the same price and I go through the same process to buy a key that I'm about to show you, and I don't make any commission whether or not you choose to use my links or buy the keys from there. I'm paid the same. They support us here, and they're my go-to. Normally, a business would not disclose where they're acquiring the things they're selling, because then that would enable you to bypass the business. YouTube isn't my business, okay? So my business is actually fixing and repairing computers for companies, also for home users, but very few home users call with computer problems anymore. They're mostly using cell phones or tablets these days. So that side of the business is just kind of naturally faded out, and I'm fine with it. I'd much rather have a regular business customer that needs my services more often with a bigger sense of urgency, because it's usually costing them money, and they have more than one computer. In most of my business clients, they have more than a dozen computers, and they need constant maintenance and backups and things like that. So they're calling consistently for support, for questions, and for anything business related. Could be their printers, their phones, their security system, etc. So this is how the business has evolved. And of course, if I'm going to support their computers, I'd like to build those computers and sell them very low profit, but at least I get paid to maintain them. And maintaining my own builds is a lot more profitable for me because I know exactly what to do to fix them, and the likelihood that they'll need fixing is significantly decreased because I built it with good parts. And one of the parts I use is an operating system, and of course, everybody wants Windows 11. That's where we're at today. So what I do is I go to this website, and I'm going to bring up the video here on screen and show you. If you look at one of my previous live videos, or even including this video, there's a little gray box there. And if you click where it says more, it opens up the video description or the video notes. And in there is a link for everything we're talking about in the video, products, things like that. And then there's also the links for the Windows and Office license keys. You don't have to use these links. They're just there for you to save you time so you don't have to search for it, okay? Once you're there, let's say we're on Windows 11 Pro, we want to buy that. You hit the Buy Now button, it's going to ask you to sign in. It doesn't cost anything to create an account if you don't already have one, but they need a secure way to email you your receipt, your download link, and your product key that you just paid for. Once you've signed in and you buy it now, it goes into your cart. And if you put my name in here under the promotional code, put in Carey, C-A-R-E-Y, and hit apply, that price will go down 25%. If you don't want the price to go down 25%, don't use the promotion code and pay the regular retail price, which is still a good price, by the way. And choose how you want to pay, PayPal, Visa, Google Pay, et cetera, et cetera. And then you're going to go through the online forms depending on your payment method, no differently than you would any other e-commerce purchase. Within about 2 minutes, you're going to get an email. Doesn't matter if it's day or night, weekend or holiday, rain or shine. Within about 2 minutes, you'll get an email confirming your purchase, and you'll also receive your product link and download link. Or, I'm sorry, your product link and your activation key, product key. And in case you lose that or you need it in the future, you just sign back in with that free account you've created and look at your purchase history, and all the details are there anytime you should ever need it again. You never have to contact support for that. But they do have a chat support that's 24/7. So if you're having some difficulty in installation or activation, you just reach out to them and they'll help you out. They'll do that for free for up to 6 months. After that, you know, listen, it's not a lifetime of support for a nickel. Okay, it's not how it's going to work. But once you get it all activated, you probably shouldn't have to worry about that ever again. And certainly if you're smart enough to make a backup, I guarantee you won't have to deal with it again. But anyway, this is what I do to buy my keys. I literally put in my own name, as silly as that sounds, to get that 25% off. And pay the same price you pay. I have the same support you have. But where I take it a step further is if any of you have any difficulties where their support is needed and yet not helpful, you can reach out to me directly. And I don't know any other content creator on this platform that does that unless they themselves are selling the product. Let me be clear, I'm not selling this product. I just want you to be aware of it if you want to save some money, and you know that I can tell you you're not going to get scammed. I personally back it. So if you want to be done with it the first time, okay, and you don't want to goof around with what could be a scam seller, I'm just providing this information for your sake. Again, it's not a commission-based link. You're not helping me out by buying it. I'm trying to help you. I don't want to get that straight. Some people think they're doing me the favor. Listen, how about we do each other favors? I'll help you, you help me, everybody's good. Nobody's keeping score. If it can save you some money and you come back to me as a trustworthy source from now on, that's a great investment on my part. And again, most businesses would never tell you where they acquire their Windows licenses. I mean, you could ask Dell, see if Dell tells you how they buy their licenses. You might get a vague answer, but likely the answer you're going to get is none of your business. Okay. But Dell's buying in such large quantities, it really doesn't apply to small businesses or consumers. You'd have to be buying, 10,000 keys at a time to get the kind of prices that they're getting. But anyway, with that, welcome in everybody. I see a lot of folks joining us here in the chat room. And let me say hello to everybody before we get started with today's video. AC Johar joins us. Ryan from Canada says hello. There's Sean Skinner and Montana. And I also see Dan from Canada. 3D Everything, Eddie Casanova and Elijah 52 Dickens are joining us here in our live chat room. Michael Lavelle, Gary Tatum, Mark Baggett, Jim Kenny, David Herzog, and Ben Laird all say hello. Welcome in, guys. John Williams, John Rogers, Andy W6AD, and Astral, along with John Lewis and Boss. Also saying hello here in our friendly community. And there is also TechSmart Computers saying hello, along with Mr. B508 and Edward Bass. Welcome in, guys. Bruce Baker and Mark Leibowitz joining us. Mark says hello from Chicago. It's a little cooler today, only 75 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, or 24 to 27 degrees Celsius. Less humid than last week, still bad air quality due to the Canadian forest fires. We definitely are being affected by that in Arizona. And we've had overcast skies here in about 10 to 15 degrees temps that are lower than normal because we're in our monsoon season and it's very humid out there, overcast, and only in the 90s. So I'm enjoying the lower temps, but I'm not enjoying the higher humidity. But given a choice of either one, I'll take the humidity over the heat. But either way, I'm still staying indoors. But at least that the sun is behind clouds, which we only get a few days out of the year where that happens. Usually the sun is unobstructed, just repressively glaring down on you without shade or shelter. Well, you could have shelter, but I'm saying if you're outside, we don't really have much in the way of trees, and we don't have much in the way of shade. And that bare sun just shining down on you relentlessly, well, it doesn't get any easier year after year, I can tell you that. I don't know if it's getting hotter or it just feels like it's getting hotter because my tolerance to it is reduced. But when you combine that with all the crowds of the big city, it's a combination that keeps me a night owl. If you wonder why my shows start in the afternoon, my days start later than everybody else's. Let's see. So where was I? Anthony SF says hello in the chat, along with Dustin Fuller. Big House joins us, and DJ Allsparks May says hello. Pat Black says hello. There's Andrew. Jason Wyrick, Luke Green, yeah, Rick Lakes, and Peter Retired, Paul Vircher. Welcome in, and I think I got everybody there. I hope I didn't skip over anyone. Today I want to go over Windows installation media. So first of all, if you can imagine somebody who builds computers, somebody who tests computers, I need to reinstall Windows a lot. If I'm building a computer, it's not a reinstall, it's the first time it's ever been installed. When I make these videos, I make a video that I would be interested in watching, and I hope that the viewers that click on it do so, because there aren't many people who cover this kind of information online that I have found. And what started happening, about 4 months ago, Microsoft, 4 or 5 months ago, decided that they were going to update one of the installers every month with that month's updates already patched into it, already built in. They used to only do this twice a year. And what would happen is, as the year would go on, I would need to wait for more and more updates as the year wore on every single time I installed Windows. Now, if you're a home user and you installed Windows once 3 years ago, you probably say, well, what's the big deal? I'm installing Windows 3 times a day. And that means I'm sitting waiting on Windows updates that take longer and longer and longer as the year goes on and more updates come out, but the installer remains unupdated. And yes, I could always manually slipstream those in, but honestly, I don't have the time. That's not a fast process, and it requires testing when you're done. And no sooner than you're done, within a couple of weeks, there's another update. You're right back to square one, and you will do this till the day you die, or until you say, I've had enough of this. So the fact that Microsoft is doing it is very appealing to me, because then all I have to do is once a month go download the media creation tool, and all the work's already done and tested. All I have to do is take a few minutes to download the file and then overwrite my installation media, and I'm good to go. And if I do that every month, then any updates that come out that month are the only ones I have to get. So if Update Tuesday happened just this last Tuesday, and then yesterday a new patch came out, and this new patch that came out is really just for Dell computers that had a problem with this update. It doesn't really do anything for you. It comes across as an emergency out-of-band update. And what a shame, because, this is why I wouldn't slipstream the stuff myself, because you never know when another update or series of updates are going to come out. So no sooner than you're done, you're right back to square one again, missing updates. So no sooner than Microsoft was done and released the updated installer image, within a day and a half, they released this out-of-band update for Dells. Now, my computers are set to just get any updates at any time if they're available and they're marked as important. I want them. And even though this update doesn't do anything for me, because I don't use Dell's, why would I use my competitors' computers? I still like to have the current version number. It makes me feel good, and I like everything to always be the same. I don't want to do something different for Dell's than I do for my own machines, if I can avoid it. So already I'm going to have to download an important update even after creating this installer. But then the second Tuesday of next month will be another series of scheduled updates between now and then, whatever security issues they find, because there's millions of hackers going after Windows. It's occurred to me that I'm going to just kind of go off on the side quest here and mention that anytime we talk about how to deal with issues that arise from a very popular operating system, the world's most popular operating system, there is an attitude that exists mostly online and not so much in real life, but it's mostly online, from people who say, I solved this problem by switching to Linux. And I don't know if they hear themselves. I just want to point something out. What these people are basically saying is, Windows was my first choice. I wanted to use Windows, but I'm such an intolerant person, and due to the popularity of Windows, it's attacked so often, that I blame Microsoft for this behavior. And because of that, I was forced to choose my second choice, which is Linux. And it's the funniest thing to hear people come into a Windows channel when they don't have Windows, just to boast about they got sick and tired of dealing with Microsoft. It has nothing really to do with Microsoft. And then they went to their second choice. Like, this is some kind of punishment, or, you know, I'll show them, I'm going to punish myself. And then afterwards say, you should punish yourself too. It's the funniest thing. Nobody says, I've been using Linux and I don't use Windows. They always say, I used Windows first. Okay. That's hilarious to me. And I switched to Linux. But then why are you still watching a Windows-based video? That's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Clearly you must miss it or be longing for it, or there's some resentment that you feel like you were pushed out and had to go to a secondary OS. That's so funny to me. But anyway, I just had to point that out because I'm like, do these people even hear what they're saying? Anyway, you know, you use whatever operating system you want. I don't care. I'm not a Linux channel. I've never been. I don't go on Linux channels and say, you guys should just use Windows. It's a lot easier. Can you imagine? Can you imagine how they would just gang up on me if I did that? But they don't seem to have any problem doing it the other way around. And the hypocrisy in that and what they're saying is so hilarious. Just watch for it. If you ever see that. I got sick and tired of Windows, so I went to Linux. So they said, I got sick and tired of my first choice, and I went to my second choice. And I didn't do it because I wanted to. I did it because I felt like I needed to. Like, it's punishment. I just can't get over how funny that is. Anyway, you know, these tips that I show you, you don't have to follow them. You know what I mean? And if it's an operating system you don't have, I don't know why you're leaving, not you, but the people that do this, why they're leaving comments that have nothing to do with the video. The video is not about Linux. It's never been about Linux. And they want to talk about Linux. Well, I want to talk about the price of tea in China, but it's a Windows channel. All right, so we'll try and stay focused. But anyway, I've got a Windows installer here from last month's version of Windows that I've been using all month. And typically, whatever Thursday follows that second Tuesday of the month, that's usually when the media creation tool's updated. But Microsoft does not disclose this publicly. When we go to the Windows download for Windows 11, Microsoft's download for Windows 11, it doesn't give us any versioning, or it gives us sort of the main, you know, Windows 11 25H2, but it doesn't break it down as to which build number is that. Or the media creation tool, we don't really get any version on that or any information that it's been updated. And what version of Windows 11 you're going to download with the media creation tool is hard-coded into the media creation tool. It's not a database that it goes online and updates. So if you're using a media creation tool that you saved in your library and you want to pull it back out today, then whatever version of Windows is hard-coded into that media creation tool that was what it downloaded at that time is what you're going to download. You're not going to get the latest one. You must download the latest media creation tool, in order for it to download the latest update to Windows 11 with all the updates built in. But how would you know when Microsoft does that? I just told you. It's about the second Thursday, but it's not the second Thursday. It's whatever Thursday follows the second Tuesday of the month. And you just have to download it and check it. Or wait for my video to tell you, hey, it's updated. I see Mara's staring at me. Hold on.
Debbie now. And you look so smart with
You don't say. E equals McDonald's squared.
There you go. Yeah.
I have an email. Let's check it. Let's see emails. Why do I not see any emails? Oh, Paul Vircher. There he is. Paul sends us an Amazon gift card. I hope you enjoy the gift card. Hope the chat is having a great summer. Thank you, Paul. We appreciate your support of the channel and, of course, being here, joining us in the channel. And I believe Paul is a member in here as well. All of our folks you see there in green support us and make this possible for the bills that have to get paid to make this video, from the internet connection to the lights to the studio space to all the equipment you see on the desk. It's never ending, just like a house payment or rent. Every month the bills come due, and those bills are not paid for in a traditional way that you're accustomed to, or that you might be accustomed to on YouTube, where a corporation is sponsoring the channel and the content creator is compelled to say what the corporation tells them to, or to not say what the corporation tells them to, or that content creator ain't getting paid. I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. I don't want any one entity to turn on or off the faucet. So by spreading it out to the audience, those who choose to see more of this content voluntarily choose to support us, and those who don't want to support us financially but they enjoy the content, well, it's because of the other people that this content is even here. So just keep that in mind. If everything should start swinging one way where the supporters are dropping off, that tells me people aren't willing to pay for the content. They don't find value in it. And if people don't find value in it, what am I doing? You know what I mean? So with that, let me get this machine fired up, and I'm going to demonstrate step by step how we can verify what version of Windows 11 we have on the installer, and then how to download the media creation tool and the new version of Windows, and then overwrite this version with the new version, and then check its version number on here to verify that we have a new version. Okay? So let me jump over here. Let's go to HDMI 3. It's right there. Oh, that booted quick. All right. So here's what I'm going to do first. I'm going to grab this flash drive. I'm going to plug it into a USB port back here. There we go. And this is a Windows installer. Let me jump back over to that screen. Right click, full screen. See. Okay. Now I can see it. There's my mouse. Go to this PC, and you see that the flash drive is drive D and E. It's two partitions on a Windows installer flash drive. If I unplug the flash drive, I only have drive C, just so we're clear on that. And if I want to know what version of Windows this is, then, and we'll add this command if it's not there already, there's a PowerShell command, which, you know, thanks to the community for giving this information to me. And I've just saved it in Notepad so I can highlight it. And this D:\\, that's the letter of your flash drive. In most cases, if you only have a drive C, your flash drive will be drive D. That's probably the most common. But whatever letter of your flash drive is, that's what you need to change that letter to. So in our case, it's D. It's almost always going to be D, since the vast majority of computers that I work on only have a C drive. So more times than not, when I plug a flash drive in, it becomes drive D. I'm going to right click on that and choose copy. I could also just select everything and choose edit and copy, whatever you want to do there. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to type PowerShell. Oh, wrong keyboard, Carey. Let me try that again. I'll come down here and type in PowerShell. And right here, Windows PowerShell, open as administrator. Are you sure? Yep. And then at the prompt, I hit Control V like Victor, and that pastes that in. And when I press enter, it says, okay, it looks on the flash drive. You've got Windows 11 Pro. Come down a little further, run version 26200, and the build is 8653. But if we look after getting Windows updates on this machine that I'm using here for demonstration, it has all the latest updates that were downloaded. And by going to the system properties, we can see the current version is 8894. Now, we're not going to get 8894 because of that out-of-band update, but we're going to get much newer than 8653, which is what we have. So by using this installer, I can continue to use it indefinitely. It just means I'll have to download the updates to raise that number up to a newer version. Or I can simply change the installer or update the installer with the latest file from Microsoft and raise that number up. So that's one less thing I have to worry about, less time I have to spend downloading and waiting for the install. So it's up to you if you want to do this. Now, we've been keeping track of every time we download these with the build that's 8653. Before it was 8246. Before that it was 8037. So we could still be using 8037 and download updates and download updates and download updates to get us to where we are today. So if I update this monthly, the amount of catching up I have to do is very minimal. And I'm so grateful that Microsoft is releasing these monthly now. However, if we go to the browser and we type in download Windows 11, okay, and I scroll down here, what I'm looking for is Microsoft. Well, I think that's the site we want. Let's click on it. No, that's not the one. Maybe it was the first one. How to get Windows 11. Let's click on that. There is a download site. If I use Google for the search, it's the first link. Is it Microsoft support? No. That is so bizarre. Watch this. If I go to Google instead of Bing, I don't have to look. It's just right there. So at Google, I'll type in download Windows 11, and the very first link here is from Microsoft.com. Notice it says English-US before it said -AU for Australia. But I click on that, I guarantee you that's the site I've been looking for this whole time. And we can add a link to it if you want, but that's how I find it. It's just this link right here. It never changes. Now, there's 3 different ways you can do the Windows 11 Installation Assistant that you can install as an application on Windows 10 or 11, which is still downloading and installing. You can create new installation media, which is what I want to do using the media creation tool. Right here, mentions media creation tool. And then you can also download an ISO image, but the ISO image is physically larger and it only gets updated a couple times a year. Only the media creation tool is updated monthly. And nothing about this tells you anything that this was updated just a couple days ago. It simply says Windows 11 2025 version 25H2. They don't update this, which is very, very frustrating. It's such an easy thing. So there's no way for me to know when it's updated. I just, on update Tuesday, I know it's not going to be released that day. I checked it on Wednesday this last week, it wasn't changed. And I'm going to show you how I check it. What I do is I go to the Windows, create Windows 11 installation media, and I click download now. The media creation tool itself is hard-coded. So again, it does not update. You have to replace it every month. I hit open file there and click yes on the user account control. And we can close all this out now. Okay, we don't need that open. It kind of keeps the screen a little clearer for education purposes. And you have your standard license agreement. And I just hit accept. Notice I didn't install anything. This ran as an executable file. Wants to know what language and what edition and whether or not I want to use the recommended options for this PC. I normally uncheck that because I install on many different PCs, but likely this is just setting region on stuff that I wouldn't change anyway. So for me, it's likely, for both of us, you and I, it's either way, probably you'll be okay. But I uncheck the box just to play it safe, and I hit next. And it says, do you want to make a flash drive or an ISO file? And you might be thinking, well, you said you're putting it on a flash drive. Yeah, but I don't want Microsoft to put it on a flash drive for me, or they'll set some default options I don't like. So instead, I want to download an ISO file and hit next. And it wants to give it a name. Well, I'm not sure what the version number of this is going to be yet. So I'll just leave the default name here for now. And if I decide that it's newer, this says Windows ISO is already there. All right, it looks like I have it here. So let's just call it Windows. I keep using the wrong keyword. Windows 2. And then I will hit save. And it immediately starts downloading that to the computer. And I have a pretty fast download connection. You can see, in real time how long that's actually taking. And let me go back over here. This is, again, depending on the speed of your internet connection, it's about a 6 gig download. The ISO is about an 8 gig download. And how you check the ISO version is a little, when you download the ISO image, under the third option of downloading the ISO image, it's a little bit confusing because we're creating an ISO image with the media creation tool. But they're built completely differently under a different file structure. They both essentially work the same. So why download the bigger one that isn't updated as often? Download the smaller one, and it'll go a lot faster. Once it's done here, so we're at, where is it at? 64%. And what it's going to do is it's going to create that new ISO image, which it's done, and I click finish. Okay, now how do I know that that's a newer version than what I already have? Remember, we have drive D and drive E already installed, right? So when I go here and I double click on this Windows 2, you can see the date. You can see we just downloaded that, 6.7 gigs. I give that a double clicky, and Windows 11 is smart enough to create a virtual DVD drive. So if I go back to this PC now, I now have drive F. See that? So if we go back to PowerShell, once again, we'll type in PowerShell and run it as administrator. And I should still have it buffered if I hit Control V. I need to change the source from the D drive to the virtual F drive. And I can look in that ISO file and see if it's a newer build number. If it is, I'll keep it. If it isn't, I'll delete it. And I'll check it again tomorrow, right? So this is what I did on Wednesday. The difference wasn't there, right? It was the same version. I deleted it, and then I downloaded it. Again, I downloaded the media creation tool again the next day. I downloaded it again, and I did this again, and then the version number came up with a bigger number. So right here, it's saying version 8873. That's newer. Last I checked, that's a bigger number than what was it, 8653? So we know that that's an update, and it's 8873. So to keep all of my ducks in a row for my own sanity, I'm going to rename the file with 8873. And the way I'm going to do that is I have to remove the virtual drive. So you will virtually eject. So right-click and eject. Now the file's not in use, and I can change its name. So if I go back to my downloads folder, and I copy this structure right here, because I want to keep all the phrasing the same for my own organizational purposes, and I'm just going to change 8653 to 8873 and enter. Now I know exactly what that file is. Wouldn't it be nice if Microsoft did this for us or gave us that information on the main website? So sometimes I do this and it's not updated yet. It's been the Thursday following Update Tuesday the last few months, but Microsoft hasn't sworn that that's their mission. So it may not happen till Friday or Saturday. But once it does, I'm good for the next 30 days or until the next well, since the second Tuesday of each month is Update Tuesday, I can expect that following Thursday to be an update if I want it. I don't have to take it. So 8873, right? Did I get the number right? 8873. Yeah, I got it right. So I could close all that. Okay, so now that we've identified what we have as newer and updated, that's exactly what I want. I'm going to type in Rufus up here and hit enter. And right here it says Rufus, create bootable USB drives the easy way. Click on that, and we're going to download the latest version of Rufus right here, Rufus 415 or 415p. Notice they're both the same size. Anyway, pick your poison there. Click once on that. It downloads here. I click on Open File. It's not really installing anything. It just runs. Now let me close all the background stuff so you can more easily see my screen. It already identifies the flash drive that we've plugged in just automatically. You literally only have 3 clicks. We're going to go to Select and find the image we just downloaded right there. Let's see, that's 1 click, 2 clicks, 3 clicks, and then hit the Start button. That's all you have to do. And the last time I ran this, it's remembering my preferences. But what Rufus is doing is it says, I recognize that ISO. The programmer has said, if you identify this as a Windows installer, no matter what image you're going to use Rufus with, it looks to see if it's a Windows image. Because if it is a Windows ISO file, then it pulls this optional menu up for you. And I don't recommend circumventing any of Windows security requirements or component requirements like RAM and Secure Boot and TPM. But if you wanted to remove those, it's your computer. And if you want to go play in traffic, I'm not going to stop you. You're a grown adult. If you want to take those risks, knock yourself out. And if you think playing in traffic isn't dangerous, you and I will agree to disagree. So all I do is I remove the requirement for an online Microsoft account because I can't log into a Microsoft account on behalf of my customer. I have nothing against it. It just doesn't work in my business. Nobody's going to do that. Dell isn't going to update your computer before they ship it the way I do and make sure all the drivers are up to date. They did all that under their master system image, and it very rarely gets updated over months and months and months. So depending on how old the model of Dell is, or HP or Lenovo, any of the big manufacturers, you're getting a cookie cutter machine the same as the day it came out, even if it's a year later. With me, every machine's installed separately with its own updated drivers unique to the machine, and I rarely see the same machine twice, whereas a factory, it's dealing, like an Oreo cookie factory doesn't make Chips Ahoy, okay? They're just making Oreos. I'm making a different cookie every day, so sometimes multiple different cookies each day. So I cannot use an online account for this. My customers can, but I can't. Then here, disable BitLocker, automatic device. If you're installing Windows 11 Home, it may enable encryption by default. Whether it does or not, if I check that box, I can guarantee it ain't going to happen. I leave everything else alone because, quite frankly, everything else to me is dangerous and a bit foolish. But if you're more of a experimenter and you like playing with fire, you're allowed to, okay? I advise against it. With those options selected, I just hit OK. It says, hey, we're going to erase this DVD drive, this one up here, the 16 gig drive D. Yeah, that's great. That's what I wanted to do. Okay, it's just confirming. And in here, it tells us our progress of what's going on. It doesn't take very long. And what it's going to do is it's erasing or formatting that flash drive. It removes any partitions that are on it. It creates any partitions that it needs. Usually in a Windows 11 boot media, it'll create 2. Rufus creates its own bootable thing, and then of course there's the traditional Windows installer. So depending on how fast your flash drive is, if you have a very inexpensive flash drive, this may take you 3 to 10 times longer to do than what I'm demonstrating because I have a very fast, more expensive 16 gig flash drive. It's worth it to me because if you consider the number of times I install Windows per week or per month, If it's going to take 10 times longer, it's going to take me 10 times longer to get that part of the job done. So it quickly adds up at scale. I'm not going to use a $6 flash drive for this. The flash drive I'm using was about $35 at the time I bought it. These days, I don't even think they sell them that small anymore. And if they did, they'd probably be about $15. But I don't care. It's still worth $35 to me, and I'm glad I bought once and cried once, because it pays for itself in the value of time I'm saving. Of course, that's not beneficial if the computer I'm plugging it into doesn't support the speed of the flash drive, but I don't see much of that. And that's why it often doesn't make sense to put money into an old machine, because what you're saving in money, you're spending in time. That may not bother you if your time has no value to you, or if time has more value to you than money. That's for each of us to decide on our own. Me running a business, I can't pay my bills with time. Quite the opposite. I have to pay the electric bill and the rent, the internet service bill. All of that has to be paid every month. So I need to do everything I can to make sure I have that money by the end of the month, or I'm going to be panicking if we're getting close to the end of the month and I haven't met my obligations financially. I'm going to be having some anxiety, all right? And if I can do that much sooner in the month, then I can kind of relax if I want to the rest of that month. And, you know, that's if you're living month to month. If I want to, and things are going well, I could start nesting some away extra for next month. I wish that was mostly the case, but right now, economically, things are pretty tight. So when I tell you money right now is a lot more plentiful than my time, you understand. Now, it's already done, and we're going to hit close. And we're finished. It's all finished. What I want to do now is I'm going to go over here to camera 1. And I'm going to unplug the flash drive from the back here. And you don't have to safely eject it. Just unplug it. And then I'm going to plug it right back in. It doesn't have to go in the same USB port, but just plug it back in. And then we'll come back over here. And we're going to repeat what we've already done before, which is I'm going to open this PC right here. We will see the, interestingly, it only created one partition for some reason. I'm not sure why it did that. Sometimes it does too. I'm not sure. Don't really care because it works the same regardless. So for whatever reason, we've got the one partition. Once that ISO is expanded and written, it becomes a little over 8 gigs. So I think you probably are going to need a larger than 8 gig flash drive. I use a 16. I'm not sure if that'll fit on an 8 gig flash drive or not. I guess it will. It says that's the space free. So it's not that big. It's only using 6 gigs. So it will fit on an 8 gig. Yeah, it's using 6.5 gigs. So an 8 gig flash drive for now still works, but every time there's more updates, right? And every time they slipstream the updates into Windows, Windows gets bigger. So I don't know how much longer an 8 gig flash drive will work. Probably till the end of the year, maybe this time next year. We'll see. But in the meantime, an 8 gig flash drive would be the smallest you'd want to use. So now you notice our drive letter is drive E, right? So if I go back to our downloads folder where I have this command right here that tells us determining Windows 11 ISO, I'll double click on it. And I will highlight, well, first of all, we'll change this to drive letter E. Oh, wrong keyboard again, Carey. We want uppercase or lowercase, doesn't matter. And then I will highlight that. Where's my mouse? Okay, I'm going to highlight that with my mouse. Edit, copy. I'm going to open PowerShell. I can close this, just get it out of the way. And we can close this and get it out of the way. And I'll type in PowerShell. Gosh, I keep going to the wrong keyboard. PowerShell, and then run as administrator. Yep. At the prompt, Control V like Victor. I've already changed the drive letter to E. Press Enter. And right now our build number is 8873. Okay. If you check your computer, you have 8875. That's because you got your Windows through Windows up your updates from Windows Update instead of from the installer. And one of the Windows updates you're going to get, this doesn't need, because it fixes a previous update that's already fixed out here. It's a little confusing. The point of the matter is, all you need to focus on is take all the nerdy magnification and scrutiny out of it. Is this number bigger than the previous one? Yes. Then you succeeded. If you want to get into the details about what those numbers mean and stuff, again, I don't have time for that. You have fun with it. If you get your Windows updates through an already installed Windows on a desktop or a laptop or mini PC, whatever, you're likely going to have 8875. And if you got the out-of-band update that's only really helpful to Dells, but it won't hurt you to have it, then you should have the same version I have, which is now, I've already forgotten, 8894. Now, last I checked, 8894 is a bigger number than 8873, but 8873 is still a bigger number than 8653. It's a much bigger number. It's over a 200 build number difference, and this one's only a 20 build number difference. So I would say close enough, because that's all you're getting. Microsoft isn't updating this again until after the next patch Tuesday. That following Thursday, we'll do this again. And then whenever I install Windows Fresh and Clean now, I'm going to start with 8873 and then just download updates since that number. It's going to save me a ton of time. And that's why this is so important to me. It's not an emotional thing. It's about trying to be efficient and trying to get more work done in one day. Because I'm one person, I don't have any employees. There's only so many hours in a day. And if I spend all those hours getting one thing done and I pay, one customer pays me, then so be it. But if I can have the ability to work where I can get 2 or 3 things done in a day, helping 2 or 3 customers, each one paying me, you can see I just made a lot more money that day. My customers didn't have to wait as long for me to do them, taking a day for each one. I make more money and I can help more people, and all for a free download. And that's it. That's all there is to it. And that has both Windows 11 Home and Pro on it, so you can pick which one you want. It'll work on any system, any mini PC, any laptop that meets the requirements, right? You're good to go. That's completely free and legal. Microsoft wants you to have it. If you want to buy an activation key, we've shown you how to save money on real license keys that are supported. And if you don't activate Windows, you don't have to. Windows will continue to run all of your applications indefinitely. You may get a watermark down in the corner that says your Windows is not activated, and you can't make some personalization settings like changing your wallpaper and stuff. I know people that have run Windows for years and years and years, and they just have the watermark there. It doesn't bother them. But if you do activate it, you get some personalization features enabled. That's pretty much it. Some people still think there's a difference in performance between Windows 11 Home and Pro. No, there isn't. They perform exactly the same. People that run Pro do so because they may be having office needs. And because the difference in price between Home and Pro is only, from the website I showed you, it's only about $2 or $3. I just throw Pro on everything, and then that way it's easier for me to support it. I don't have the calls where somebody's trying to do something in a business where they need Pro, but I gave them the option of saving $3 and they picked Home because they didn't know any better. And then we have to go through an upgrade process, which sucks. If you have Home now, Windows 11 Home, that's all you need. If you ask me what version of Windows I have on my main administrative computer that I use for my business, it's Windows 11 Home. That's what the Samsung Galaxy Book 3 came with. There's no benefit to me upgrading that to Pro. It's just a waste of time and money. It's a psychological placebo. If you see Windows 11 and Pro installed on these, because that's what they came with. If you see me build one bare bones and I put Windows 11 Pro on it, I've already explained that. I put it on there so it never is needed by a customer. But too many people watching social media are influenced by nonsense. Or because they've been in this business, they've been working with computers for some time, there used to be a performance benefit, like how much RAM you could use with Windows 7 Home versus Windows 7 Pro, how much maximum memory and stuff. Let's remember, by the way, Windows 7 was primarily a 32-bit operating system, right? Am I remembering that correctly? What am I thinking of? It was Windows 7. When people talk about Windows 7 with such nostalgic memories of how wonderful it was, they had very limited resources on it. You know what? I need to check my memory on this because I can't remember. After 3.5 decades in this industry, it's just a lot of compiled information over the years, and I just want to fact check myself on this. So I'm going to just open up Gemini here, and I'm going to ask it if Windows 7 was primarily 32-bit. I know there was a 64-bit version. Or am I thinking of Windows XP? Hold on. Was Windows 7 primarily 32-bit or 64-bit? I just can't remember anymore. The major, okay, that's where we finally got through to 64-bit was Windows 7. So prior to that, when you were installing Windows XP or was it Windows Vista, you were still limited to 4 gigs of RAM. People don't remember that. They're like, oh, remember when it was better? Yeah, when you had less. I guess in a way that is sort of the way it works, isn't it? In the days when we had less, we seem to appreciate it more. I guess that Monty Python 4 Yorkshiremen skit where they say, you know, when I was growing up, we didn't even own a house. We had barely, we would roll up a newspaper to drink tea because we couldn't afford a teacup. And despite not having the modern things, we were happier. And the guys around the table, they're old men, you know, celebrating their success. They're wealthy and successful now, thinking back to when they were kids and how they were raised. And it's all for comedy, but there's always a little truth in these skits. And he says, you know, we were happier because we were poor. I remember we didn't drink out of a rolled up newspaper. Oh, I know what it was. We drank out of a cracked cup. Guy says, you were lucky to have a cup because we had to drink out of a rolled up newspaper. And the next guy says, rolled up newspaper, we had to suck on a damp cloth. Well, you know, it wasn't all that bad living in our home with great big holes in the roof. You had a home? We lived in a hallway. And half the floor was missing, so we were all huddled on one side for fear of falling. And the other guy says, hallway, that would have been luxury. We lived in nothing but a hole in the ground. And the next guy says, we were evicted from our hole in the ground. It just keeps like they're one-upping each other and just how bad they had it. And it's interesting to me that when we look back nostalgically, when we didn't have so much and things were less complicated, there's a psychological value to simpler times. You only had 4 gigs of memory in 32-bit operating systems, whether it was Apple or Linux or Windows. That is a mathematical limitation to a 32-bit operating system. And yet, you didn't really hear anybody complaining that I wish I could put in more RAM. Sure, there were always a few, but just not the consensus. And now people put in more RAM like it's going to make a difference because they're psychologically conditioned to believe that doing that makes a computer go faster. But I would say if you have a refrigerator full of food that you're not eating, it's wasted food. Anything that you have that you're not using, how would you know if it went missing? So if you have 16 gigs of RAM and you're only using 8 gigs of it at any given time, and you can check your RAM usage, but you follow online influencers, they would lead you to believe that if you could free up more of your RAM, your computer will go faster. It's simply not true. That may have been the case years and years ago. You can, the extra RAM you have is extra. It's not in use. if you have this much RAM not in use, or you have this much RAM not in use, it has no impact on the computer one way or the other. So these people that spend all this money thinking by adding RAM I'm making my computer faster are fundamentally misunderstanding how RAM works. It's just a gross baseline fundamental misunderstanding. And so when an influencer also misunderstands that and they convey it to their audience, it is very irresponsible in my opinion. But since they're not held accountable for their misunderstanding, and then they conveyed their misunderstanding as though it were fact, and then you believe them because you look up to them and you assume they know what they're talking about, that's on you, okay? So if you want to put 128 gigs of RAM in your system so you can load Microsoft Paint, Outlook, and browse the web, nobody's stopping you from wasting your money. But I would want you to understand the value of what you're paying for so that you can determine if that really does make a difference in your world. Because there are some of you out there where you are using more RAM than most. Most of you watching this video right now, if you go into your task manager and look at your RAM usage, you're using far less than 16 gigs of RAM right now. So if you had 32 or 64, 128, nothing changes. You just have more of what you're not using. At expense, quite expensive, by the way. If we go back over here, I'll just show you. Now this is a relatively lightweight machine. I don't have a lot of stuff on it. But then neither do most end users. That may not be speaking to most of my viewers, but most end users, businesses and whatnot, there's always exceptions, but most aren't really using much. So if we go into our desktop, we just hit Control-Alt-Delete and go to the task manager here. And we can go down, I think it's the second button right here. We can see how much memory we're using. So here we've got 8.5 gigs of RAM in use and 55 gigs of RAM available. So if this said there was 4.9 gigs of RAM available or 114.9 gigs of RAM, it doesn't change anything. This number doesn't change and the computer speed doesn't change. That's how it works. It's only if you're using, let's say I had 16 gigs of RAM and I was using 16.5, then I'll see a speed increase if I have more than 16 gigs of RAM. But if I'm using a much smaller percentage than I have, until I exceed the number on the right, and unless I'm doing that regularly, the only downside is your computer may slow down a little bit. And that's because it's swapping to your solid state drive. But solid state drives swap so quickly, they're not as fast as RAM. I mean, nothing really is. But as far as I/O goes, RAM is about the fastest you can go. Depending on what your job is that you're doing or the game that you're playing, you may not notice any difference when it's swapping. But if you are, and you notice you're using more RAM than you have, then in your circumstance, exceeding the amount of RAM you're using will benefit you. But far exceeding the amount of RAM you're using will only hurt your wallet more and accomplish the exact same thing. And so I'm trying to get people educated so you can identify those influencers now who I think they mean well, they just don't know any better. Because they're not in the industry and nobody's calling them on their nonsense. They don't answer to anybody. They're not being audited and reviewed by a boss to correct their mistakes. So they're free to make mistakes on YouTube as a public figure, and you don't have any authority to correct them. Nobody does. If they want to talk about the Loch Ness Monster and how it's real, if they're Alex Jones with conspiracy theories, that's freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is freedom to lie. It is. There's nothing illegal about lying unless you're in a court of law. So, or there's certain circumstances, you know, if you're under oath and things like this. But what I'm trying to get to is that people may not always be lying intentionally. They simply may not understand it themselves, and they don't know. They think they understand it. But because they don't work in the industry, there's nobody there to correct them. There's nobody they're answering to. They sure as hell aren't answering to their viewers, I'll tell you that. If anything, they're answering to their corporate sponsors, or they're answering to their ego. And I don't think most of them that do this do it on purpose. They're just so misinformed that they honestly believe they're educated and they want to share their knowledge with you when their knowledge is wrong. That's why I always say if you're going to watch a tutorial on YouTube or look at something on Reddit, consider the source. And when that person won't show their face or won't tell you their real name, I wouldn't take anything they say seriously. They might as well have a clown makeup and a clown nose and a wig. I don't take clowns seriously. And they might know what they're talking about. They might. But then why are they hiding? That in and of itself is enough for me to not respect your opinion. When you're willing to expose who you are and be held accountable for the things you say, I will respect you more and I will consider what you have to say. But it doesn't matter what I think, does it? Because they're going to do whatever they want to do. I'm not their authority. I cannot shut them down, and they don't answer to me. And that is the price you pay for free content. So it's up to you to sort of filter that yourself and to do your own research. Just like I just fact-checked myself on Gemini because I want to make sure I have it remembered correctly, and I clearly didn't. And I need to do that more often because as I'm getting older and as technology continues to evolve, I'm not only expected to remember the technology of 30 years ago or 10 years ago or 3 years ago and all the terminologies that go with it, but also I'm expected to know all these different applications from Microsoft Office to QuickBooks and Quicken and printers, scanners and networking and NASs, NVMe drives, PCIe generations, costs, consequences, reliability. All of that just keeps every year, every month, it's more and more and more. And at some point, the bucket gets full and things get lost. And especially if it's a subject matter like Windows 7, I haven't seen it or touched it in years. So that memory fades out like a Back to the Future image. You're fading out, Marty. So, to go back and touch on it and sort of revisit that as a refresher. And, it's just personal pride and ego, I think, that people don't want to cross-check themselves. And since they won't, it's your responsibility if you want to believe what they say, including me. Fact-check me. Okay, and fact-checking means an official source, not just asking hearsay from some other person online. Let's go back to the chat room here. Yeah, Mark Leibowitz said most of his clients, he's a computer technician in Chicago, by the way. Notice he uses his real name and he promotes his business. What business owner wouldn't? He says, most of my Windows 7 clients were on 64-bit. Vista, as I recall, was more stable as 32-bit. And I think there was also a 64-bit XP. Yeah, there was a 64-bit, but I didn't know anybody that had it installed, and it was a little wobbly. But thank you for that. Terrell Cochran says, I worked for a college for a while, so I got a copy of Windows XP through them that was 64-bit. Yeah. I experimented with it, but ultimately there wasn't enough support for it. Some people didn't have 64-bit processors. Some people didn't have a use for it. So I stuck with what was reliable at the time. And it was a chicken or egg problem. If you ask Microsoft why they didn't provide a 64-bit version of an operating system earlier, they'll say because Intel and AMD didn't provide a 64-bit processor. And if you ask Intel or AMD why they didn't provide a 64-bit processor, they'd say because Microsoft hasn't created a 64-bit operating system that can use it. And the way it played out was that AMD and Intel came out with the 64-bit processors long before Microsoft finally came out with a 64-bit OS, which was during the Windows XP period. So when Windows XP was initially released, there was no 64-bit version. And when the 64-bit version did come out, it was kind of experimental. But at that point, 64-bit CPUs had been available for a couple of years, if I recall correctly. And then by Windows 7, it was 64-bit was the default, and now you could get rid of that 4 gig, RAM limitation and heap size of, larger applications, causing a main resource drag on the little resources you were limited to at 32-bit, which seemed to get smaller and smaller as applications grew larger and larger. So 32-bit was fine when the applications were smaller. We didn't know any better. So it was innovative and it was great
until it wasn't anymore. And it got outgrown by the applications becoming more and more resource intensive, which also means they're a lot more user friendly, more graphical, point and click. All that stuff takes huge resources. There's a reason why you could put DOS on a couple of floppy disks. There's not a whole lot to it. Pretty simple. The amount of code to create, say, DOS 3.3 compared to the amount of code in Windows 3.11, you can't even compare. And then if you want to go all the way to Windows 11 now, it's sort of like looking at a grain of sand compared to a giant mountain. That's how extremely different they are. The amount of resources it takes to pick up a grain of sand and move it is very different from picking up an entire mountain and moving it. And as such, you need more resources to do that kind of work. And the tool you were using to pick up the grain of sand no longer is useful in any way to help you move that mountain. And so the technology advances with operating systems, the hardware, with the PCIe generations, with the speed of the RAM. All that stuff factors in to giving you a more powerful tool to more and more handle larger mountains of software requiring huge amounts of resources. But again, most people, and including business owners, are using their computers for relatively low resource applications. Relatively speaking, they're low resources. Whether it's opening your browser, opening a PDF file, opening your email, that's all real easy stuff for the resources we have available today. And a handful of those clients, those are the ones that will have specialty applications that are more resource intensive. And it makes sense for them to pay for more memory or pay for faster CPUs or pay for larger hard drives. And then you've got your home enthusiasts, many of the YouTube content creators of tech are just nothing more than home enthusiasts that never worked a day in their life in IT. Most of the big channels, they're just entertainers. And they don't really have anybody fact check them. They just believe they're right. And then you believe they're right. And then you come over here and you start spouting off stuff, and I call you on it. I go, no, that's completely wrong. Well, this person's bigger than you on YouTube. Yes. My popularity has nothing to do with my knowledge or experience. Can you imagine if that's how we graded life? Well, if you were any good at what you did, Carey, everybody would know your name. Really? What do you do for a living? Because I never heard of you. I guess you're not any good at it, huh? Imagine if that was flipped the other way. So just because someone's popular, it doesn't mean that they have their information correct. They may just be more appealing to listen to, or they may have, a personality that you find attractive, but that doesn't mean that they have any experience about what they're talking about outside of their own. And if they're not held accountable by somebody auditing them or responsible for giving them a title or a promotion, they've got nothing to lose if they get it wrong. There's no punishment. And because of that, they often don't know when they get it wrong. They believe they did it right, and then they're done. And it's like, really? That's how you finished? You think you're done? We'll agree to disagree. But you as the viewer, because these filters are not put in place for you, you have to be your own viewer. So do fact check, including myself. Before you go recommending anything or repeating anything you read or hear online, it's all hearsay until you verify it. So if you want to be a gossiper, go be a gossiper. But if you want to be a person of your word and you want to be respected for your knowledge, double check your knowledge. I do it all the time, and I'm corrected more often than I'd like to admit. But the truth is, that's how we learn. And if I forget something, that's how I remember. You know what I mean? It's just life. So no harm in that. Ligrinia says he just created a new Windows Media installer, followed our steps, and he set it aside for when and if he needs it. I would advise, especially if you have more than one computer, there's no sense in making it now. Because if you don't use it the next 30 days, you just wasted your time. Because there'll be another update the next 30 days and you can do it again. Now, if you don't mind wasting your time and you think it's fun, go have fun. If you wait until you need it and use one of your other computers to then go and create and update your drive, that would be a lot more time management wise, more efficient, more optimal. But it's your call. Manuel Heiss, Josh Kinder, and Jason Bratcher join us in our chat room and say hello. I see Pat Black and Montana also joining us in our chat room. Montana says, retirement in 8 years. Carey, will you still be doing this? My philosophy with life is, and I see a lot of younger generations suffering mentally with purpose. One of the things I notice with the younger generation, just not everyone, but I see it in bulk, is this unwillingness to earn something. Like I'd like a job and I'd like to be hired as a manager. Well, no, you're going to have to start at the entry level. We're going to make sure you show up on time and you're hygienic and professional and a pleasure to work with. And then based on some experience, promote you, to manager in the future. No, you give me the manager position or I'm not going to take the job. Have a nice day. We'll work fine without you. We've been working fine this whole time. We don't know who you are. Your resume is pretty lacking. So there's no competitive nature in this younger generation. They'll be competitive in their games, but they're not so much competitive individually in life. They expect things to be handed to them. So, I don't know if I was really that much different, other than I was happy to be accepted for a job. And my first job, aside from having a newspaper route, my first kind of traditional job was, I believe, in 1984, working at Jack in the Box. That was my very first job. It was $3.35 an hour, which was minimum wage at that time. And I was delighted they hired me. Kids don't think the same way, I guess, in bulk, what I'm witnessing anyway. So when it comes to retirement, part of my thing, and the reason I mention this is, after a while working at Jack in the Box, I just felt a little abused and overworked and underpaid, and I was looking for something more fulfilling. Why am I here? And some people seek religion for that answer. Some people never ask. And what I found out was, I'm here for whatever reason I decide I'm here. It's not for anybody else to tell me why I'm here. And I decided that I'm here to make a difference, a positive difference in other people's lives, because for whatever reason, that makes me feel good. And if people pay me, well, what's better than getting paid for something that makes you feel good? Because I was getting paid, but I wasn't feeling good at Jack in the Box. I was feeling good on payday, but even then, there was a pretty small check. I sure wish it was more, but it was never going to be unless I left that job. And when the whole computer thing came up, I thought I was going to be a mechanic. And I was in the GM school for training for ASE certification in college, and the computers were always my hobby. Well, the whole thing flipped around, and what ended up happening is the jobs I had at that point were varying from fast food to telephone sales to working at a check verification center, a place called Paychecks, still around today. Very, very different from what I do today. And I wanted to get a job at a place that builds computers, but I didn't have any experience other than my own personal experience, and I automatically assumed I had a lot to learn. So when I saw that this computer company was hiring somebody for their inventory control, it wasn't that far different from verifying checks. It's just data verification. I'm pretty good at that because I'm naturally inclined with OCD kind of behavior. And any detail that's out of place, my eye tends to be drawn to it. Even grammar that should have a comma or a misspelled word that nobody's noticing, I see it instantly, unless I'm the one who wrote it. So I went to the interview and I said, I'd like the job for your inventory control person, but I'd really, my goal is to become a computer technician. But I knew I was going to have to earn my way in. So I got the job in inventory control, and they were starting to expand the company a few months later, and I was up for a review, And I said, I want to apply for the new computer technician position, because once I had worked there and I saw their lead computer technician, I got to know them because I was working with them every day. It became very clear to me I wasn't giving myself enough credit for what I knew. These people, to me, didn't have anywhere near the knowledge I had, and they were the ones in charge. So, ooh, that was shocking. But I didn't self-promote. I just said, please, sir, may I have another? It took a long time. I didn't just come out of the womb ready to work on computers. It took a while to figure out what the hell I wanted to do, what would bring me joy versus what's giving me a paycheck. Jack in the Box, Little Caesars, and Domino's, they gave me a paycheck, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't fulfilled. And then I went working as a computer technician from that point forward in 1991, and I've never stopped. And the positions take on more and more responsibility to larger and larger corporations, and the pay increased accordingly. So whether that was Intel or the government agencies that I worked for, other problems came up in the government, a lot of bureaucracy. And it was like being in high school with adults behaving like teenagers, and I just pointing blame and control freaks that I think were beaten up in high school, that were resentful, and now they're a manager in a government agency, and they're just nasty people. And I think they're nasty because they have some resentment and PTSD from their earlier years when they weren't in control and had no power. That's my theory, and I just couldn't stand to be around them. So eventually struck out on my own. So this took a long period of time. When you ask me, when do you want to give all that up and walk away, and you use the term retirement, if you understood how hard I fought to have it, you'll let it go out of my cold, dead hands. So when I'm dead, I'll retire, okay? Or if I become physically unable to do the job. But so long as I can work and I can do the work, what has my age got to do with anything? And once I retire, I'm going to go back to being a teenager and go, now what am I supposed to do with my life? Why am I here? What purpose do I serve? Other than consuming the planet resources and then dying, what am I giving back? Why should I get out of bed? Why am I even bothering to stay alive? That's how serious this is to me. So to answer your question, when am I going to retire? Never. Never, ever. Any other simple questions I can take 20 minutes to answer? That's nothing new. We're used to it, Carey. I know. Ligradius says he often does make a new media installer every month anyway. So I'm just here to remind you. Microsoft is now doing that monthly. Thank goodness. Stevie Zundert says hello from the Netherlands. Hey, welcome in, Stevie. Mark Leibowitz said his first job was in his dad's office. He was a doctor, and he paid me 15 cents an hour more than minimum wage because he didn't want anyone saying the doc's son was making less than coffee shop workers. Well, it's a hell of a reason. Really looking out for you, huh? Let me look out for you by looking after myself first. If people are going to talk about me, I need to make sure I pay you more. People, talk about them. That's a hell of a way to get a raise. Put peer pressure on him. Well, I guess it's better than a poke in the eye. Transvat says hello in the chat. Dave Raymond, Carey, did you see Meta PCs? No. Meta PCs is a company, and they have a few offices here in a few retail stores here in Phoenix. I see it. I drive by it sometimes. I never see anybody inside. I see promotional campaigns. I never hear anybody talking about buying one. I don't know how they're paying the bills. I have no idea who's funding this company, but it certainly appears to me they're in a negative equity situation here. And, depending on the financer, I guess they'll be in business regardless if they have sales. But then I don't know what I'm talking about, because maybe they are having sales and people are buying and I'm just not seeing it. But the industry as a whole is significantly slowed down. And depending on where your financing is coming from, if you have investors, I don't understand how Meta PCs is in business, but I don't have to. That's their business, not mine. I try to focus on my business. I don't worry what anybody else is doing. I do wonder, but I don't spend too much time on it. E.L. Saunders says, "Can you retire?" No, I absolutely refuse. I've worked too hard to acquire what I have. I fought for it. I claimed my ground. I proved myself worthy. I think it's pretty sad, if you see certain singers performing today, folks that were pop stars. Frankie Valli comes to mind. He's how old is he now? If you look at Frankie Valli performing live on stage, he looks like he should be in an old folks home having living assistance. He doesn't look like he can do much on his own anymore. He sure as hell can't sing. He can barely move. Huey Lewis lost his hearing. He can't sing anymore. He can't find pitch anymore. It's gone. It's like a cruel episode of The Twilight Zone where somebody reaches a pinnacle of their success and then they're unable to perform their duties anymore in their role in their success. Whether the guy just wanted time to read books in The Twilight Zone and there was a nuclear war and he was a survivor and had all the time in the world by himself in a library full of books. And the first book he picks up, he drops his glasses and they shatter and he can't read any of the books. And then the credits roll. It's terrible. Life is unfair. I think that goes back to the younger generation. I don't think they realize yet that life is unfair. I think they haven't yet gotten acceptance that if you're not willing to be competitive, unless you're an heir or a Nepo baby, you're going to have to go out there and earn your position. And some of them will figure it out. I think most of them will eventually get there. Nobody's going to knock on your door and offer you a job. It's very unlikely for that to happen. And sooner or later, they'll be forced to deal with it. But if they have options right now where they can still get things paid for by mommy and daddy, their opinion, or at least it would have been mine at that age, is why work if I don't have to? And what I learned early on about this was my mother, when we were growing up, we always had a dog, and the dog was always well trained. But when my mother, when she didn't have kids in the house anymore, she felt like she needed to take care of something, so she got these little dogs. They were the most annoying, misbehaving dogs ever. And I was confused. I said, "Mom, why would you let your dogs just urinate on the floor? You wouldn't have allowed that back in the 80s or in the 70s. And she's like, I don't know what her excuse was. She just wants the dog to be happy. There's nothing you will find, especially, and I'll tell you what I've learned from this. A dog that has no purpose to exist is not a happy dog. If that dog is being carried around in a purse all day and pampered, that's a nasty, mean dog almost all the time. That is not a happy animal. I was dating a girl back in the 1980s. And I went over to her house, and everybody's living with their parents. We're still, 18, 19 years old. And her parents had two Dobermans, very large. They look scary, okay? And I'm a dog lover, but, I also like to think I can take control of a dog if it's going to bite. Doberman, pretty much bigger than me, and there were two of them. And they were fine. They were friendly dogs. But then something happened. So I'm sitting in the living room, and the dogs start going crazy. Rah, 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 and they're drooling. They have about drool running down their face. And I'm like, what the hell just happened? And the father gets up out of his, Barca-Lounger, and he opens the front door and he lets the dogs out. And what it was the paper boy had thrown the newspaper. Paper boy's riding a bike, he throws the newspaper. The dogs heard it and maybe saw it. I didn't. And the reason they got so excited, they didn't want to go after the paper boy. The dogs knew if they brought that newspaper in, if they went out, the owner had trained them, if they go get that newspaper and bring it in, they're going to get a treat reward. And they're going to get praise, approval from their owner that they look up to. And some dogs, the approval is more valuable than a treat. Depends on the animal. So they were anticipating getting that treat. Their mouth was watering. If I go get that newspaper and I bring it in, I'm going to get a treat. Those are happy dogs because they have a job. If you look at a sheepdog, or you look at a Maremma, which is normally only used on farms, they're rarely ever indoor dogs, and it's almost a crime to put those kind of dogs indoors. Those dogs are in their element, they are happy, and they are fulfilled, and they're often not mean. That's usually how you can tell a happy dog. One that bites you or growls at you, that's not a happy dog. On the other hand, if the job of the dog is a watchdog, so it's not just angry at everybody, it's protecting an area, and it's protecting the area from you, it's going to get praise and treats and approval from its owner. So that's a happy dog. So that would be an exception. And people aren't that different. So when somebody feels like, well, I don't have to work, so why should I? They are locking themselves in their own prison, and they're the only ones who have the key to let themselves out. And yet they look around their prison and go, look at all this freedom I have. And they don't realize they're in a cage. I was there. I understand the logic of it. But once you get yourself out of the cage, the last place I ever want to go is back in that cage. I never want to go back in that cage again. And to me, that's what retirement is. It may not be that to you, and that's okay. I'm just telling you what it is to me. Theo Saunders says Frankie Valli is 92. Yeah, and if you look for Frankie Valli live, if you pull it up here on YouTube, he's not singing. He's lip syncing, and he's trying to move to the music, but he's so old. Sometimes by the time he tries to move, the beat is already, he's missed the beat. I'm sometimes, in that kind of line of work, when you're an entertainer and you can no longer perform, you need to stop performing, but you're not doing that for you. You're doing that out of respect for your fans to say, hey, I'm not going to sell you a ticket and then just be a puppet on stage where I'm not really singing or I'm not really doing the entertainment that you paid me to see. It's fake. You'll really see me, but you won't see me singing anymore. You'll see me pretending to sing. And if that's good enough for you, but they don't put that disclaimer up there. They just go, hey, it's Frankie Valli in concert. And, apparently Frankie Valli's okay with it. And apparently maybe the fans are okay with it too. Ann and Nancy Wilson of the rock band Heart had a very harsh comment to say about that. They said it was very disrespectful. And if they were ever in that position, they would never do that to their fans, and shame on him. So even people of the same positions, the same form of entertainment, can disagree. So if I were to get arthritis and I couldn't use my hands, or if I went blind and I couldn't see, I'm not quite sure if I could adapt to that in my career, or if I'd just have to find something else to do. I could become a novelist, or I don't know. It would just mean time for a change of careers. It still doesn't mean retirement. What about the Rolling Stones? The Rolling Stones, yeah, I mean, I think Mick Jagger still sounds pretty good. He moves pretty good. The question may be, sometimes band members die. So if Charlie Watts, the drummer, has been around since the day, the early days, for decades, and then he's gone, he passes, you have to get a replacement drummer. Is that still the Rolling Stones? I would say yes, because your two main guys, no disrespect to Ron Wood, but your two main guys are going to be Mick Jagger, the face of the band, and Keith Richards. As long as those two guys are there. I went to see Plant and Page. That was how it was promoted. Robert Plant and Jimmy Page. And those who know, that's half of Led Zeppelin. Jason Bonham, the drummer, died long time ago. Not Jason, John Bonham. Jason's his son, who sometimes plays with his father's friends as the drummer. And was it John Paul Bacon? John Paul, the bass player. And Led Zeppelin fans would say, Carey, you're crazy. They're all idols. They're all rock stars. The two main rock stars, let's face it, your lead singer and your lead guitarist. AC/DC, you're looking at Angus Young, the lead guitarist, and Brian Johnson, your lead singer. And when Bon Scott had died way early in AC/DC's career, the fact that they found somebody that sounds pretty damn close and were even more successful as a result. But you look at a band like Foreigner that was sort of like Fleetwood Mac. It was half Americans and half Brits. Foreigner doesn't really exist today. None of the original band members are there anymore. It's all gone. And for a long time, it was just the original founder, Mick Jones. And Mick can't really do much anymore. Can't sing anymore. But yet he allows the name to be reused. So, that's their decision. And it's your decision as a fan if you want to pay to see what is essentially a cover band at a higher price. That may be something you want to do. But at least you should know that before you buy the ticket, is all I'm saying. John Paul Jones, that's what it is. Where did I get John Paul? I don't know where I thought of Bacon. John Paul Jones, thank you. Thank you for that. That's what I'm trying to get across. Some of the band members are much more public facing and get a lot more attention. And it's not to diminish the value of the other band members. But Ringo was definitely not the most popular Beatle. That doesn't mean he was bad. But I would say primarily it was John and Paul, and then George, and then Ringo, as far as and don't get me wrong, a fan would be delighted to meet any of them. But if they had their order of preference, usually the face of the band is the one that people think of. Sometimes the band goes unknown. Mitch talks a lot about how he likes the band Toto. And what you may not know about the band Toto is they played the instruments for a lot of popular hit songs as studio musicians that are mostly not known. I mean, they were known as these amazing studio musicians, and everybody wanted them. Michael Jackson, and I don't know, you could Wikipedia the members of Toto, and the studio work is probably on a lot of very popular songs that you didn't realize was them. Everybody wanted them in their studio session, but they often didn't tour. They weren't a part of the band. Sometimes the name of the band is the lead singer, and the band gets no credit. Madonna. Who's in Madonna's band? Can you name anybody? She's not singing a cappella. There's another one that maybe should retire. She's not moving the way she used to, and she's still pretending like she's 23 years old, and it's just not, feels a little undignified. Maybe time to kind of step back a little bit. But that being said, it's just my opinion on it. In a career that I'm in where I'm not under that sort of performance, as long as I can continue to do the work, I just want to keep doing it. Is that so bad? I don't know why people look forward to retirement. Because you know what comes after retirement? What's the next thing you've got to look forward to? I'm not even going to say it out loud because you know it. John Williams said AC/DC is playing in Madison tonight. Hey, that's cool. And Brian Johnson and Angus Young, as long as they're a part of the band, as far as I'm concerned, that's AC/DC. Yeah, they said George was the youngest of the Beatles, and he was one of the first to die of at least, not being murdered. And then Ringo, I think, was the oldest. Probably still is. Funny how that works. John Cougar would sing a song, well, John Cougar Mellencamp today, right? Would sing a song, I Fought Authority. And he's being chastised that he needs to grow up. And he said, well, growing up leads to growing old, and growing old leads to dying. Maybe those lyrics in the time, maybe had some impact on me. Well, there's no maybe about it. Music was kind of a religion. It still is for me. It's my Prozac. It's what I do to isolate myself from the world and deal with stress or difficult times, or sometimes I just need a reset. And while a lot of people go to pharmaceuticals for that, I don't. So I have an eclectic array of music I like to listen to, depending on my mood. If I was playing Doom, I had Rammstein and all these other heavy metal bands that I would have a CD in the CD drawer playing the audio while I was playing Doom. So I was hearing the gunshots and everything, but I'm hearing my music, which was all very aggressive heavy metal. But then if I want to relax, I like to listen to more ethereal music like Enya or Enigma, or there's a group called Polished Chrome. Amazing, very relaxing, but it's not just somebody playing a piano, or it's not. It's very dynamic music. Things are moving in the headphones, and there's a rhythm to it. But it's for me, it's very, very relaxing. But I don't want that when I'm driving. I don't want to be relaxed and go to sleep. So then I might put on some rock and roll or some pop music and kind of bebop in my chair as I'm driving and have a good time. So music plays a big role in my life. So we've got about 20 minutes left. Funny how time flies when you're having fun. I'll try to put out a shorter video to sort of summarize this whole process. And that'll give me something to do this week. I don't really have anything else planned at this time. There's nothing else here. We do have some stuff coming in. Some stuff's a little untraditional for me, but I'm interested in it, so I'll make a video out of it. And as far as mini PCs go, I just don't know yet. I know Minisform has introduced 2 more new PCs, and they still haven't officially released the MSO3 yet. When they do, we have one. They've asked us politely, please don't share this with your audience until we release it, and they sent me a pre-release. And so what I have may be slightly different from what ships, but it's probably very, very close. And they said, if you agree to that, we'll send one to you now so you'll have it. And then when we tell you it's available to buy, then you can show it to your audience. So that was one I've already taken out of the box. I've already set it up, gotten familiar with it. And I won't show the unboxing. I mean, I'll take it out of the box, but it won't be like the first time, given the circumstances. And they don't know yet when they're going to release it. Depends when the factory's done. So sometime between now and the end of the month, I should get a green light. And it won't do me any good to show it to you if you can't order it anyway, right? So it's in everybody's best interest to just wait. So that's kind of a project that we have waiting. And then we have a couple other things that are supposed to be in the mail. We'll see if we ever get them. We did send that NAS back to Ace Magic. We haven't heard anything yet. Maybe we never will. Hopefully they'll send us a replacement unit, and when we receive it, we'll follow up a video review, because the unit we had, the third drive bay wasn't working and it appeared to be a defective unit. So we mailed it back to them. If they return a unit back to us, we'll give it a second chance. And if they don't, it's not because of me being resentful or bitter or punishing or punitive. I just don't have it. So we'll see. You know, they said they'd send me another one, but will they? And then as far as any other mini PCs go, there's just nothing really out there. Even if we could buy it, I'm not aware of anything we can afford that we haven't already done. So if you run into something, you see it, let me know. And we'll continue to reach out to other companies about models they're working on that they might want to consider us for reviewing. If we run into any diagnostics or repairs that we can show on camera, we always will. You never know when those are going to come in. And if there's anything we can help you with, of course, technical questions and things like that, we can do that in a live session, like an Ask Me Anything, which we'll probably end up doing this week, given the lack of equipment we have to review. Or you can always email us. Our email address, very easy to reach us. You can send your email right there to that address, showcasecreate@gmail.com. We're usually pretty quick to respond. And if you want help with a problem or any clarification to anything, never ever hurts to ask us. It doesn't bother us one bit. Okay? Michael Meyer. Oh, there's a cat joining me. Did you notice you were on camera? Because I talked about the email? Oh, really? Is that true? What? It's the stray cat that moved in. I got a squatter. She won't leave. But she's polite and cleans up after herself. So, you know, she got that going for her. Hey, Mara. And see you later. Came by to say hello. I called your mother. No. Now you're in trouble. I don't know what she wants. I don't speak Catanese. She's telling me she wants food? Does she not know who I am? I'm the petter, you're the feeder.
Right.
All right, let me pull that email address down. But yeah, just reach out to us anytime. Doesn't bother us. In fact, quite the opposite. We love to hear from you guys. But what we don't want, please don't send us links to things unless it's your own creation. I don't need to see it. All right, so I don't need to see anybody's videos. I don't need to read anybody's articles unless it's your video or it's your article, in which case we'd love to see it. If it's a problem you're having, we'd love to help you. If somebody else is having a problem, let them contact us. If they don't want to contact us, we don't want to work through you. Okay? No offense there. It's very difficult and time consuming to have a man in the middle or a person in the middle, and it makes everything inefficient. It's very frustrating. But anybody that watches our channel is invited to reach out to us. So if you know somebody, feel free to give them our email address. But please don't act on their behalf. I find that very offensive. And he said he's always looking for a great bang for the buck mini PC. I think a lot of people are right now, aren't they? Yeah, we'll certainly let you know. And do let us know if you find something that seems like a really good deal. Maybe something's on sale, or maybe there's a refurbished model and they have some available for a limited time. And you want to let us know that in email so we can let other audience members know that can take advantage of it. That's good info as well. So that would be an exception to, you know, I'm not the one selling it or creating it. That's okay. Like if I find out there's a sale on Gatorade and I don't know about it, I wish somebody would have told me. So with that, we've got about 15 minutes. I try to stop at about 2 hours. And so with that, we've got about 15 minutes. I'm happy to hang out and talk about what you want to talk about. Let me just see if I missed any questions. Feel free to repost a question if I hadn't seen it. Andy said, if you have to work for money, you're not free. I disagree. We will disagree because I think that's a very myopic view of the world. Looking at everything as black or white or looking for absolutes is just not a perspective or an attitude that I find attractive. But it's your choice. You know, if you choose to see the world in that light, that's your choice. Unfortunately, I find life is, well, I don't know if it's unfortunately, but it's unfortunate that we can't agree on what's valuable. But that's okay. You know, you do you. And you certainly don't need my permission, and I don't need yours. But I do believe that having a good attitude of acceptance of reality instead of sort of pigeonholing everything is for me anyway, is a more fair way to look at the world instead of compartmentalizing everything and not really letting things be unique and different. You know, to say that all money is bad and all work that you do without getting paid is good is a little overly simplistic for my type of thought process. There's sometimes where making money is bad, and sometimes where working for free is bad, and through all of that, I try to find a balance. And when I can get satisfaction from doing a good job and get paid for it, I don't see any downside on either side of that argument. But you choose to, and so be it. You know, we'll agree to disagree on it, and you do you. You know. I just don't think I would be mentally healthy with that attitude. That doesn't mean you're not. I just wouldn't be. Sable's in the house. That's all she ever is. She's only in the house. She just lays around everywhere. I think we should call her Disable. Cats are quite lazy, apparently. And what else do we have in the chat? I don't have to wrap this up in the next few minutes, but if there's no interaction with the chat room about technology, you know what I mean? Like, the whole channel exists to talk about tech. That's why we're here. Talk about life philosophies or opinions about attitude. And it's not really what I'm here for. What do I know? I know what I need to do to get through life, and you know what you need to do to get through life. So let's accept that and move on to things that we can more mutually agree upon or be inspired by. I think that's a much more positive reason to do these videos rather than stand your ground on something that really, who cares? You know what I mean? John Rogers says cats are hunters. Yeah, they're apex predators. That's what I've read. I just never witnessed one actually hunting. I mean, these stray cats are feeding themselves somehow. I don't know. They're eating crickets and bugs or eating out of garbage cans. I don't know. But that's what she was when we found her, or when she found us. I don't know how that works. And then she decided to move in, and she doesn't want to go outside anymore. The funny thing is you can let her outside. If she chooses to go outside, she's usually not out very long. She wants back in. So it's not like you have to worry about having an indoor cat that, you know, don't let the cat out. Oh no, you can let this cat out. She's a scrapper. She'll be just fine. And you don't have to worry about where she's going. She'll come back. She knows where the food is. She knows where the shelter is. So, you know, that's very rewarding for me to know that being unable to communicate with the animal in a sense of language, we can communicate through other means where the cat is allowed to choose for herself where she wants to be. And if she's choosing to be here and she's a well-behaved cat, welcome in. I'd say the same about a squirrel or a raccoon, prairie dog. You know, I think all life is great, but most wildlife is a little too wild to domesticate. And this cat may have been previously domesticated or just warmed up to it real quick. I don't know if she was born a stray or became a stray, but she was out there with the rest of the strays. But the rest of the strays won't get anywhere close to us. We can feed them and feed them and feed them for months, and they still keep their distance. And for whatever reason, she decided to close in that distance. That was her choice. And we just allowed her to make choices. And if she wants to leave, she's free to go. I think that's the best way to have anybody in your life or any living creature. If you keep it trapped in a cage, I don't know. I don't know how happy you would be if I put you in a cage, but you could put one of those water bottles down with a little ball valve. Doesn't sound too bad. Set up a hammock for you to lay in your cage like a ferret. All right. Michael Myers says, building a simple desktop PC is not cheap anymore. Well, it depends who you ask. I mean, I have friends that get government assistance every month. Same age as me. And they're not working. And they're not disabled, not physically. And they just decided they can't find work, and they just decided they need government assistance. And so building a PC has always been they just can't, they've never been able to afford it. I have given them PCs. Now that PCs are more expensive, they can't afford it any more than they could have when they were cheaper. So the fact that you think building PCs was cheap means you were making more money than them. If somebody's making more money than you are, they'll tell you PCs are still cheap. They really are. But, you know, depending on how much money you make, determines on whether or not something's inexpensive. And depending on what something is worth to you. If it's only worth something to you if it's cheap, then you don't really value it. If you value it a lot, you'll find the money to make it happen. If it really matters to you, the money won't be in your way. So, on the other hand, if you're living off government assistance, and it doesn't even cover your basic living needs, you sure as hell aren't thinking about PCs. You got bigger fish to fry. What do I think of the Steam machine? I think the Steam machine is a waste of money. I think you could just build yourself a Ryzen 7 computer in a mini ITX case with like a Radeon 7000 series GPU. And you could do that for about $150 less than what is. It makes sense, right? Because probably the folks making the Steam machine are making $150 profit. That sounds about right. So if you build it yourself and you're not paying them the profit, then the cost is the same for the parts, basically. You could build the equivalent for about $150 less. And since you can download the Steam OS and install it, you're good to go. I don't know. What do you think of the Steam machine? At Black says, do I sell the Windows keys? If you go back to the very beginning, this video, we are live. But you can rewind this live video right now and go back to the very beginning, and I explained all of it right there. You can do that right now. Just use your mouse, or if you're watching on your phone, use your finger and pull that play bar all the way back to the front, to the start, and it's all fully explained right there for you. You can also read the video notes, which is also explained. That's why teachers don't like students coming into class late. That's why you'll often, back in school, if you were late, you were kicked out because you just missed everything the teacher was teaching, and we're not going to have the rest of the class sit there and have the instructor repeat himself because you weren't on time. Not that I'm punishing you, but what I am saying is you have the power to rewind this video right now to see what you missed. You may not know that, so. And then when you catch up, you know, if we're still live, you can, you know, catch up to us and see what you missed while we're still live. Newer Ham Radio Elmer says the steam machine is junk. Well, there you go. He continues on. The steam machine is a massive disappointment due to its terrible price to performance ratio. Al, who asked the question, said it offers poor value. Personally, you're right, 100% you can build a better machine. No, I'm saying you can build the same. You can basically, I mean, Steam Machine sort of modified AMD CPU a little bit, but what is it? Hold on, I'll tell you exactly how you can build one. There's a PC World article that was published where they mentioned, and I'm just telling you, I don't make this information up. I'm taking it from trusted sources. So here, PC Magazine wrote an article. Here we go. Let me see if I can share this with you here. And I'm going to stand behind this because I agree with it. I don't always agree with what PC World authors write, but I do agree with this one. Comes across quite grounded here. This was published last month, a few weeks ago. And there they built theirs. It looks a little different, but for $888. And if you look, a Steam Machine starts at $1,049. And what parts did he use? Well, he did, with a little help from PC Part Picker, between Amazon and Newegg and a coupon code, he managed to build a desktop PC with an AMD 6-core CPU, an 8 gig graphics card for $887.52 at the time of authoring the article. So what did he use? What were the equivalents? The closest equivalent would be the Ryzen 7000 series CPU matches Steam Machine's specification, where it lists a semi-custom AMD Zen 4 6-core 12-thread with a 30 watts TDP, top speed of 4.8 gigahertz. So the 7600X should technically be more powerful than that. Its base clock is at 4.7 with a boost to 5.3. And though it uses a lot more power at 105 watts, it's also a more powerful chip. So with more power consumption comes more power results. He says, I dare say AMD and Valve's custom tuning on a similar chip will give it an advantage, and either one of them use that magic 3D V-cache, but it's still a fantastic mid-range CPU for gaming. For the GPU, the GPU in the Steam Machine is a semi-custom AMD RDNA 3 with 28 compute units, 110 watts of TDP, and 8 gigabytes of VRAM. So given those specs, it's almost certainly a variant of the RX 7600. Again, the retail card technically has slightly higher specs with 32 compute units and a faster boost clock, but I'll bet that the one in the Steam Deck does better with the quote-unquote certified games. With RAM, you know, this is the part he says that really hurts with the sticker shock, is that the Valve Steam Machine has 16 gigs of DDR5, and the cheapest he could find for a dual DIMM package was 6,000 speed. Storage, he's using a 512 gig Gen 3x4 ADATA, again matching the speed and capacity of the Steam Machine's onboard storage. And for the motherboard, he chose the ASRock B650M Pro Wi-Fi for $100. CPU coolers, just using a Thermalright Assassin. Those are a hell of a deal. And for the case, he used a Zalman Cubics Micro ATX case. It was only $30 for that case. Did you say power supply? Oh, there it is. 750 watt power supply, only $44 from Newegg's brand. Rosewell, I believe, is Newegg's brand. And then for the operating system, Windows 11 can run just fine, or you can install Bazite, and it's pre-configured for Steam, or just skip the middleman and install SteamOS, which supports any home-built hardware as a version 3.8.10. But you want to stick to AMD processor and graphics cards if you're going to install SteamOS, because those are what the built-in drivers are there for. But that should be it. It should just work. So there you go. It's not rocket science. They're not doing anything real custom over at Steam. And if you're technically minded and that sounds like a fun project, you can have some fun, build something a little bit better, probably less money, and maybe a slightly different form factor, although you could probably find a similar case, but it'll boost the price. Cases like that are probably $100, $130. There you go. Mark Baggett said, I don't think I'll ever understand PC gaming. I've got a PlayStation 5 when I want to play a game. It's a lot simpler than PC gaming. Oh, yeah. I've got an Xbox. If I want to play a game, I play it on the Xbox. I don't play it on the PC. It's too much work. But again, preferences. Some people buy off-road vehicles. I never drive off-road. Never, not once. No idea why anybody would want an off-road vehicle. But they do. I see people driving four-wheel drive $100,000 Land Rovers. They're definitely not taking those off-road. I don't know. There's something about the psychology of marketing that really impacts people. And yet there are some people that will obviously take things off-road, but I don't make that kind of money. I watch these guys towing cars out of off-road vehicles that took on a hill or an incline that they can't handle, and something broke on the car and they need a tow truck to come out to the middle of nowhere and tow them out. I don't have that kind of money, man. I can't afford to buy a car as a toy and then pay for a tow company to come out and pick up my destroyed car and then pay to repair that car and pay the towing company and figure out how the heck I'm going to pay to tow that car home. And how am I going to get home now that the car I drove to get there is broken? Maybe if I trailered it in and I can get the tow truck to pull it out and I can put it back on the trailer. I don't have that kind of money to have those kind of problems. Oh, my four-wheel drive Jeep got stuck at a broken axle on one of these famous off-road trails, which none of which are coming to mind. In Utah, Moab, in California, there's these famous ones, or there's also the sand dunes out there in California. Oh, gosh, I can't think of any of the names right now. That's terrible. But I see people out there with sand rails and toys. Those are some of the most expensive toys I've ever seen outside of an airport. So if you can enjoy it, you've got the money to pay for that stuff, the cost of PCs is nothing. Nothing. You could pay today's prices on PCs and you won't even come close to the price of a Jeep or the cost of repairs or towing when you break the axle off-roading it or whatever other damage happens. If you got that kind of money, I want to be your friend and we'll take your vehicle out, break your vehicle. I'll just be there for the ride to enjoy it and then I'll go back home. Cost me nothing but my time. Sounds like a lot of fun. It's just the kind of fun I can't afford. You know, everybody has their preferences. You might like a style of music I don't like. You know what I mean? So what? Who cares? You can respect it, or you can just choose to think everybody else is not as well refined as you are. Nobody cares. You know, you enjoy PC gaming, you don't enjoy it, good for you. You know, that's fine. We're not a channel really that focuses on gaming. That's mostly 100% enthusiasts. There's not really much in the way of professional videos on gaming from gaming professionals. Usually a gaming professional is a very limited time career. You know, you'll have your heyday, you'll have your peak, and then it's all downhill from that point. It's interesting to watch somebody like Tony Hawk at his age still riding a skateboard. You think, man, you ain't 20 years old anymore, son. Those falls are going to hurt more and take you much longer to heal. And, you know, he does a great job for his age, but he's not running any competitions anymore. Those days are gone. Any other questions for you guys? Like, you know, we've hit our 2-hour mark, which is always my goal. But I never want to cut anybody short. So if there's anything else you'd like to mention while we're live, I'm more than happy to take your questions. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up for today. We are back on every Monday for our members-only videos, and those are for everybody in green and others in green that aren't here today. Those videos are only available for them and will only be available for them forever. It's a smaller, more intimate group. Is my way of wanting to get to know my supporters better and also give them a more informal opportunity to talk in a less public video. So sometimes the nature of the conversation is not quite official, not as official, not quite as serious about consequences, because I want to convey by leading an example here, if you want to get into this business or you don't understand the details, the nuances of the business, I want to explain it to you because I didn't know it either. And when you find out the details and the complexities, it may change your mind, or it may be even more appealing to you to know, hey, I love that there's consequences, and I love the potential for making a lot of money for something I enjoy doing, right? So if I can give you that additional information that is not commonly known or shared, I'm going to do that because I wish somebody would have better prepared me for this field. I figured it out the hard way. You know, they just kind of threw me in there and said, figure it out. Luckily, that pairs well with how I was raised. Welcome to the planet. You know, we'll change your diapers and get you fed, but the minute you're potty trained and you're going to school, we're more or less out of your life for most of the day. You will be on your own, kid. So from the time I was 5 years old, walking myself to and from school by myself, or meeting up with neighborhood classmates. We would meet at the corner and then walk together. Or leaving school, go back to that corner and they go to their house and I'd walk a little further to my own. Sometimes coming home to an empty house because both parents were working and even having to look after younger siblings. So don't go anywhere, don't hang out with your friends. You stay home and you look after your younger siblings until I get home. And I was a kid with responsibilities to look after my younger siblings. And that's life. And being thrown into something and figuring it out was my introduction to this planet. So it wasn't really any different for me. But if I had my preference, I would have loved for somebody to share all this information with me ahead of time. And so that's why I do it. Some kind comments here. Do I have any guests planned for any upcoming streams? No, not at this time. John Williams, thank you for your kind words, as well as Ryan Weber and Edward Bass. Eugene Hildago says Geekom IT15 with no other context. Are you talking to me? You just randomly bring up things with no context? It's a little weird way to communicate. I do believe the IT15 is quite expensive. If it's the machine I think it is, it's their newest flagship model, which is over $1,000. We don't have the budget. I mean, if somebody wants to buy it for us, or somebody wants to buy it and send it to us and we send it back when we're done, you know, reach out in our email. We'd love to take you up on it, but it's outside of our budget. If it's the machine I think it is. And I don't know why you mentioned it, because it doesn't have any context. Yeah, and then it looks really, really slow in here. Terrell wants to know if I have any place to get renewed hard drives. I don't care if it's SATA or SAS, I can use both. Well, I mean, it's not as though nobody's looking for that right now. It's like a food shortage. And you're like, do you know anywhere I can get bread and eggs? Everybody's looking for bread and eggs. You know, that's the thing in this example, not in reality. Unfortunately, you're looking for something where there is a very short supply and a very high demand in any format. New, used, refurbished, any way they can get them. So no, I don't. I just happen to have been very fortunate to have stockpiled a bit in inventory where I don't need to buy any. And I'm not looking to sell what I have, because then how am I going to use, how can I use machines being sent to me bare bones for content if I don't have that existing inventory? And I don't have that existing inventory because I knew this was going to happen. I had it because it was on sale and I knew I was going to need it. And you know, if I had the funds coming in from YouTube at that time to invest a little bit in myself, and I haven't gone through all of it yet. We still have a bit of RAM and storage here, and thank goodness, because I don't know how long this is going to go on. If I knew it was going to end in March of next year, I could say, well, this is how much I've got extra, if I had extra. But if we don't know the end, when this gets better, and it will get better, we just don't know when, I don't know how long I need to rely on what I have. I still might run out. So therefore, I'm not selling any of it. And I think a lot of people have that attitude, making it very difficult to find any form of storage inexpensively as far as like what it used to cost. But, you know, it's temporary. It's like trying to get toilet paper during the pandemic. It's easy to look back at that, but it was kind of difficult to get through it. But once we're through it, it'll be behind you. You just need to be patient. So when I was buying the drives, I always bought them from Amazon. I never bought them from anywhere else. So I wouldn't know anywhere else to buy them, quite honestly. My three go-tos were either Amazon Newegg or B&H Photo. Those were the only three places I would ever look. Sometimes you can get a deal directly from the manufacturer, like Western Digital. Sometimes had sales, and I could buy directly from Western Digital's online store. But I don't like how long it takes them to ship, and I don't like the return policy. My preference for that reason was to always go to Amazon. And if Amazon didn't have what I was looking for, I just didn't buy it. But the prices will go back to normal sooner or later. So you just be patient. Andy said I'd make sure and check Minis forum during Black Friday sales. We're still quite a ways away though, right? We've got to get through the rest of July, August, all of September, all of October, and 3/4 of November. That's almost half a year away, right? July, August, September, October, November. We're 5 months away from that. So it's a great reminder when we're closer to it. I don't think telling anybody today, I don't know how, I can't speak for you guys, but I won't remember what you said tomorrow. And you know, look, maybe the RAM and hard drive shortage end between now and then for all we know. So We just don't know. But certainly something to bear in mind the closer we get, if things haven't changed. To watch for, historically, you know, Minisforum has put some things on sale at Black Friday, as have other manufacturers. That may be worth considering at that time if things haven't changed. I was maybe it was fortunate that I was born having to work for everything. Nobody handed me anything. So if someone made it possible for me to get a car, I didn't say I didn't like the color, or I didn't like the interior, or I didn't fit right in it. I made it work because it was that or nothing. And if I wanted something better, I'd go out there and make the money and buy it myself. So if I decided buying a new car that cost $20,000 was good enough, or if I decided any car that's under $60,000 isn't worth my time, that's on me, right? Nobody controlled that. So if drives or components are expensive, I don't care. Like, I honestly don't care. I don't need any of this stuff. I don't need any more than what I have. And I don't anticipate I would need any more than what I have for the next, I mean, just this machine alone. If this is all I had with this keyboard and mouse, these cameras, that's good for the next 10 years, easy. So I don't feel like this problem will be sorted long before 10 years. So all I have to do is appreciate what I have, be grateful that I have it, be proud that I earned it. And if it's for a business and the business needs something, price has never been an issue. If the business needs hard drives, we'll get the hard drives. And what they cost is what the business will pay. That hasn't, none of that's changed. So if you're just a home user and you're looking to have a little bit of fun and you can't afford the fun, welcome to the club, you know. That's why I don't go to Disneyland. Not anymore. I can't afford it. If Disneyland was the price it used to be, I'd probably go more often. But the fact that Disneyland has become so expensive and overcrowded, and you know, you combine everything together and it's very unpleasant. But if you could at least make the price of it more palatable, it would take away the resistance I have to going, right? I could say, well, it's still not as fun as it used to be and it's more crowded than it used to be, but at least I'm not financially bleeding for 3 weeks after I leave, covering my financial wounds, paying $6 for a bottle of Coca-Cola and $180 for a ticket or whatever it was, $35 to park the car. Holy cow. I don't know how it could be so crowded. People must be just borrowing money off credit cards they have no intention to pay back. I don't know. Everybody has more money than me. But the good news is I don't have to go to Disneyland. I don't need it. I will live my life just fine. If I never go to Disneyland again, I'll be just fine. Maybe better. And that's how I feel about RAM and storage and anything else they want to charge a lot. If cars are a lot of money, I don't need a car. I got what I need. I'm happy with it. I can maintain it. I'm probably good for 10 years. Again, will I still be around in 10 years? I hope so. May not be a problem I am alive to see. And if I am, will cars still be really expensive? Will our economy be better? We'll see. I don't have any control over that. But how I choose to react to it, I can cry victim and say it's not fair, but nobody ever said life was fair. Get over it. Deal with it. Welcome to Generation X. You're on your own. Good luck. Make the best of what you got. Be grateful for what you have. It is enough. And if it isn't enough, then you'll find the money. It's not as though nobody's selling them. You just don't want to pay the price. Joe Cochran said, I want to upgrade to 64 gigs of RAM because I'm feeling the pinch on 32 with the programs I run, but not at these prices. I'll have to make do. Yeah, you'll be fine. You'll survive. I think you're going to be okay. When I was growing up, one of the things my mother would tell me if I said, you know, I'll use this example. I wish I had 64 gigs of RAM. My mother would say to me, you can wish in one hand and you can crap in your other hand, and you tell me which one fills up first. So if that helps explain my attitude about this, why I seem like I don't care, I don't really care. You're just fine. 32 gigs of RAM is still more than the average. And the programs, if you're choosing to run those programs, it's a choice. If you have to run those programs to earn money, and you're just being stubborn because you don't want to pay the prices, then you're losing income because you don't have enough RAM to do your job more efficiently. That's your choice too. But if it's just on your wish list because I wish, well, we'll go back to putting one thing in one hand and one thing in another and see which one you get. But it'll get better, you know. You could have planned ahead for this when it was cheap, but you didn't. And you could say, well, I didn't know. Yeah, well, neither did none of us did. So deal with it. That's all. You'll be all right. We're all in it together. It's not just you. And nobody owes you anything. Nobody owes you cheap prices on RAM. The fact that you have any to begin with, I hope that you feel gratitude that at least you did that. You know what I mean? Some people don't even have that. So when what you have isn't enough, I think a lot of times that's psychological, but you're allowed to have that ambition, and not necessarily a bad thing. But gratitude's for what you do have is also not a bad thing either. And sometimes if you learn to live with less, you find out you never needed the extra. That's all I'm trying to say. So, all right, guys. Again, it's going to be it's going to be in the past at some point. You know, it's just right now. It's like it's raining, let's just say, and you wanted to go outside and enjoy the sunshine. Not today. Yeah, but it was raining yesterday. It's going to rain tomorrow. Yep. But I wanted to do this, and nature doesn't care what you wanted to do. So change your plans, adapt. Find a way that you can be okay with it, because the only one that is, you're doing it to yourself, right? If you're upset about it, that's a choice you're making. If you feel victimized or that it's not fair, that's a choice. Nobody's doing that to you but you. And if you say, well, at least I got this, you know, at least I have that, thank goodness that's also a choice. But they take the same amount of energy of your brain, by the way. It's not like one is harder or requires more effort. Attitude is so important, I think, in being happy. And whenever you compare to something else, it can often lead to unhappiness. If you're comparing to somebody that has, you know, somebody's taller than me, somebody's stronger than me, so you know what I mean? Like, that's all a lot of unhappiness. But you could also compare yourself to people who have less, and then feel good about what you have, knowing that, you know, in that case. What I'm trying to say is if you'd stop comparing everything, you'd be happier. Unhappiness is generally caused by you comparing something. And if you wouldn't do that, you would not be unhappy, ever. Think about it. Al wants to know if I think the next Windows operating system will use more RAM. I don't know what Microsoft is doing, and they're very secretive so that they don't let their competitors know what's going on. They don't want the rug pulled out from under them. I don't know of any new operating system that Microsoft is working on. As far as I know, officially, Microsoft is not working on any new operating system. There's rumors and hearsay and gossip. And if you choose to believe that nonsense, you know, maybe it's true. But it is what it, regardless of what I think it might be. Do I think it's going to rain tomorrow? No. But will it rain tomorrow? Really doesn't matter what I think. Nature's going to do what nature's going to do. And much like nature, Microsoft's a lot bigger than me. And I have no idea that another operating system is being worked on, how close it is. If it is being worked on, there's no public beta, and it'll be a year from public beta until it becomes a product. And in that year, it'll be refined and changed. So if it's a public beta that takes more RAM, by the time it's officially ready for sale, maybe it changes that it needs less RAM. There's so much speculation. You might as well roll a dice or throw a dart at a wall in the dark and just have it land on whatever the answer is, and it'll be just as accurate as my speculation. It's just a waste of time. I wonder if Batman and Superman got in a fight. You know what I mean? Like, it's silliness. And he said, computer stuff on YouTube is full of gossip. That's because people click on it, and that pays the bills. That's the reality. When the viewers stop clicking on the clickbait, then the content creators stop using it. So the people, it's not the content creator's fault that human behavior is so simple for a lot of the viewers, and they can be easily manipulated. Year after year, they keep falling for the same gag over and over and over, and they don't learn. At some point, they will learn. And when they learn, then those content creators are not going to be rewarded for the clickbait. When they're punished for it by seeing less views and less income, they'll stop doing it. You know, look, if people stop buying computers, there's going to be fewer places selling computers. You understand what I'm getting at? So consumer behavior drives the market. And the consumer voluntarily chooses to vote with their money or to vote with their time. If I see a clickbait video, if you want to know what I do, I click the 3 dots on YouTube and I say, never recommend this channel to me. So that content creator who got some of my time will never get my time again. Unless I do a manual search and one of their videos shows up and I click on it, and then it says, well, since you like that one, let me show you some more. And then I got to block it again. But the YouTube algorithm just on its own won't throw that into my feed anymore. Because if I see certain content creators that are clickbaity or it's all AI crap, I don't do it to punish them, but I am punishing them by making sure that the algorithm will never offer me any of their content ever again, and that my feed is more accurate for what I want to see. Because if the algorithm, if all I'm doing is passing the video and the algorithm keeps showing me more and more of that channel's content, and I don't realize that's the same person from before, I'm still clicking on it and they're still getting paid from me clicking on it. And the longer I stay on a video, the more they get paid. So even though I'll often, you know, when I click on content like that, I often don't stay very long. So they're not getting paid much, but I'm just irritated. So I tell YouTube, don't recommend this channel. Block it. I don't want to see it again. And if you do that, and if everybody else does that, a lot of these channels won't be, they can't afford to exist. Somebody's paying for it. Always watch for the 3 dots. If we go to YouTube, and you'll see the 3 dots. I think it's in the top right of every video. Even on your phone or your TV, you use your remote control. It's all still there, by the way. You may not realize, but your TV YouTube app does use buttons on your remote to navigate around. And you see that 3-dot menu and see what your options are. And especially if you're just pulling up just regular old YouTube and looking at the recommended content, if it's showing you the subject is shorts, videos that are shorts, right across from the word shorts, there's 3 dots. You click those 3 dots, say, I don't want to see any more shorts. Stop showing me shorts. That's how that works. If it's an individual content creator, I don't want to see this. I don't want to subscribe to it. I don't want it recommended to me. You click the 3 dots, you won't see it anymore. You may have to refresh your YouTube homepage, because if there's a, you know, if you clicked on somebody's video And then you go back to your homepage, you might see 8 more videos from that same person, and you're not interested. You just watch the one, and it's thinking, well, since you like that one, I'll show you everything else they made, and now your video feed is filled with their content. You don't have to click on each one and say, don't recommend the channel to me. Just click on one of them, say don't recommend the channel, and then refresh and let it repopulate. And those videos will be gone. Take control of your YouTube feed. You're not a victim of it. You can control it. YouTube does not do a very good job of educating people on how it works. All right. Well, it's 3:30 here in Phoenix in the afternoon, and I think we'll wrap it up for today. I just don't have much internet. You guys aren't asking any questions, so I guess we could stare at each other, but that seems a little awkward. So with that, thanks, of course, to everybody in green, our members who support us and enable these videos to happen. Thank you to Buster again and Paul Bircher for your Amazon gift cards in lieu of Super Chats. Thanks as well to Mara, our channel administrator, who answers all the emails and handles talking to a lot of vendors and setting up or making attempts to set up reviews, as well as all of the thumbnails and video descriptions that she painstakingly goes through for each of our videos. There's just lots of options that have to be set. I am talking with Scott Merrill, Ask Your Computer Guy, about maybe doing if you remember a long time ago, my sister joined me in a late evening broadcast where we took phone calls live and we drank heavily to give people terrible, terrible tech advice. We put a disclaimer on the screen. Do not follow this advice. This is for entertainment. Some people said that was demeaning as a professional for me to make light of it and not be a professional on camera. And other people said it was the funniest damn thing they'd ever seen, and when will I ever do it again? So you let me know your thoughts. We'll take a vote on it. Scott seems like he's saying, hey, I think that would be fun, that we don't take it seriously. Just give people terrible advice. Have some alcohol. Be loose and stop taking this stuff so seriously. But not to do that in a professional way that, we want to draw a line in the sand and say, okay, these are our professional videos, but we are human beings and we like to have fun too. Okay? Is it the right place or time? I don't know. I don't know. So if you're interested and you want to see that, or you think it's a terrible idea, I'd love to hear your feedback. You can leave it in the comments below. And then, if it's overwhelmingly one or the other, that'll probably determine whether or not we do it. And he mentioned he was talking to somebody else about Black Friday. Oh, yeah, I can't tell. Like if you don't put somebody's name in front of your sentence and put a comma, how would I know? I'm not, usually if I'm talking to somebody in a chat room, I'll put their name to identify that this message is for that person. If you don't do that, I don't know if you didn't tell me. Okay? Because the chat room, everybody's seeing your chat. Just keep that in mind. Mark Baggett said, I remember when you did the drunk tech support stream. That would be fun to bring that back. David Graham says, no, don't do that. There's too many stupid people. Well, how you react to stupid people. You can find stupid people entertaining, or you can feel sorry for them and absolutely not make any jokes about it. But I don't think stupidity is anything to be too worried about, because we're all born stupid. You know what I mean? We're all born completely stupid. And some of us have other opportunities to learn than others. And it may not be their fault they don't know something. It's when they're arrogant about not knowing something that really makes them, to me, stupid. And I think if they're arrogant and stupid, there's nothing wrong with making fun of them, right? Because they're basically asking for it. But if they simply don't know something innocently and they just have a miscomprehension of how things are working, we all did. All of us did. It's not like we're better than them. We've just learned and they haven't yet. They shouldn't put anybody down for that. Andy says, is it okay if the viewers drink too? I think the viewers that drink will find it funnier. Absolutely. Not that I'm condoning it, but I'm also not telling anybody what to do. All right. Just to be clear. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for hanging out. And I hope you've learned a little something about the media tool. It's free, it's all legal, and it is updated so far pretty regularly the Thursday following the second Tuesday of the month. It's not always the second Thursday. Sometimes the second Thursday happens before the second Tuesday does. So that's why I'm trying to find a way to phrase this. So whatever the second Tuesday of the month is that Microsoft releases the updates, if you check the media creation tool on Thursday, it may already be updated, and I've shown you how to change, or how to check rather, the image, because Microsoft doesn't publish it. And I'll keep informing you. You know, I may not make a dedicated video, but when next month rolls around, I'll be telling it to you, like in the opening. I'll say, by the way, if you want to update your installer, they just updated it again. And every couple of months, I'll probably go back and show again how to do it. And unless Microsoft changes things, we'll let you know. And okay, I think yeah, I don't see any other comments, so we'll wrap it up. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I hope you're having a nice relaxing day at home. It's back to work tomorrow, and we're already halfway through, more than halfway through July. August is torture in Phoenix. I'll be happy to be through that. I hope August goes quickly, but then if it does, I'm whatever time I've got left, I probably shouldn't want to speed through life at any point for any reason, but August can be pretty miserable out here. And I have anxiety. I know what's coming, and I know I'm not going to like it. And then things after August start repeating. So September has weather like July, and October has weather like June, and November has weather like May, and eventually it winds itself back around as it from fall and spring are very similar, back to winter, all the way to the opposite side of the year. So I'll bring on the fall, the spring, and the winter. Just in Phoenix, not a good place to be. Mitch Morrison keeps saying, man, I'm just going to have to go on vacation, leave the country. You don't have to leave the country, but he likes to travel, and he doesn't like the heat. So if he can combine his love of travel with his disdain of the August heat or the summer heat in Phoenix, he's always looking to escape it. And I'm like, save room on that life raft for me too. Yeah, some folks are mentioning how much faster life goes by when you're older. It does seem that way, doesn't it? But when it's summertime, I'm not complaining. But then as I'm getting older, I'm saying, how did I get old so fast? Well, remember those months you couldn't wait to speed through? This is a consequence of that. On the other hand, if you're counting every day on a prison wall with X's on the wall, it's going to make life seem it's a lot longer, I ever tell you that. At least, let me just say, I don't know that from experience. Unless you have evidence otherwise. That's all I have to say on the matter. Thank you again for watching. We'll see the members back here tomorrow at 1 o'clock, and I don't have anything else currently scheduled, but I will always be broadcasting on Fridays and Sundays publicly, no matter what. The show must go on. And if we're lucky, some stuff will arrive in the mail, or some projects will happen between now and Friday. And if anything happens before that, we'll do a show on Wednesday. I just don't have anything. And we're always happy to hear your suggestions for show ideas if it's something we can do and it falls within the purview of the channel. We're happy to revisit some topics upon request, networking or NASs and routers and such. But nobody's requesting anything. So we'll just keep marching forward and see what it becomes. But there will be a show on Friday. There will be a show on Sunday. Guaranteed. Wednesday, we'll see. And I have no idea. Again, I cannot tell you. But somehow these things tend to work themselves out. So it is what it is. We'll deal with it. All right. Thank you so much. We will see you all again tomorrow. And until then, enjoy the rest of your weekend. And we'll see you very soon. Bye for now.